Welcome to the VB Toolbox and to part 2 of my series on working with Microsoft Access and VisualBasic.net. In this tutorial, I hope to be showing you how to insert records into your database from your form. When we're done, we should have something similar to this. This is the form that we created in part 1, and what we're going to do is add a link to another form here. And once we get that up, we can enter a username. Whoops. Yeah, really. Okay, whatever. And whether it's active or inactive. So you'll see that it has been added to the list. Some Pearson. Alright, so essentially that's what we're going to be doing here. If you did not catch part 1 of the series where we developed this form, you can just download the source code for this tutorial in the description below. Alright, so let's get going here. First thing I'm going to do is open my toolbox here. I'm going to modify my form just ever so slightly. I'm going to bring this window down a little, move these controls down so I can add a menu item here. You can just slide those down. Let's find our menu bar in our toolbox, or menu strip, sorry. And I will set that right up there at the top of the form. And I'm going to call this MS User Action. So we'll just change the name to that so it's a little easier to reference. And you know, I could put anything up here, add user, delete user, whatever you want to do. That's really up to you. So I'm just going to add a new user link up here. And I'm not going to give it a hierarchy. I'm just going to leave it as is. And let's see, what else do I want to add here? I'm going to take this data grid view that we made in part 1. I'm just going to change some of these options here a little bit. Don't want the user to add rows through here or delete rows. I want it to be just kind of static. Let the user order columns. That's, whoops, whoa, didn't mean to click out of there. This I want to set to true, so the user should be able to sort. Resize rows, resize columns, that's all good. That's display stuff. And then I'm going to go ahead and set it to read only. Let's do this. That kind of locks in our values there. We don't really need this for this particular segment, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it in there. Next thing I want to do is change the behavior. We set this data grid view in part 1. Here, let me kick it off here for a moment. We set it to automatically load the values from the database into the data grid view and fill the combo box. And we did that in the form shown event. So what I'm going to do is jump back into my form code. You can press F7 or double click your form, however you want to get in there. And all of this code that I have in the form shown event, I want to add that to a sub because I want it to be reusable. So I'm just going, and another thing for later in the tutorial, I want to make this set the access level to public on this one because I want to be able to access it from the other form. After we add the user, we want it to refresh and show the results. So I'm going to say public sub refresh grid. And you can just grab all of this code out of here, Control X, cut and paste it right down here, and Control V. Another thing, because it's going to be executed more than once, this little guy is going to cause us problems where we fill the combo box. We have it set to, you know, grab all the records out of the table each time it's executed, but it never clears out the contents of that combo box. So to prevent duplication, just going to jump in here real quick. Clear combo box. So So we want to clear it out before we add records again. So we'll say cbx users dot, I think it's items dot clear is what we want. There it is. All right. So that just makes sure that it gets purged and doesn't just keep loading up every time we refresh it. So now if we run this, it's going to be broken because we got to add the refresh grid back to our form shown. So we'll say refresh grid, and should look good again. All right, so now we're ready to roll with the new user form. What we're going to do is essentially make a form that's similar to Form 1, but not quite as extensive. What I will do is go over to my Solution Explorer, right-click on the project, and I'm going to add a Windows form, and then I'm going to call this form New User. All right. Now I'm going to, this is a design that is totally up to you. If you like having your title bar and stuff, that's totally okay. Just for kicks, I'm going to set the start, set some of the properties so it'll be a windowless form like I had it before, as you saw. So I'm going to just clear the text value out, set the start position to center screen so it pops up right in the middle. Also set the topmost property. This makes sure that the window, because it has no controls, you want to be able to just bring that right to the top if there are other windows up. So I'll just say topmost is true. And if you want to get rid of your control box, you can just go to the control box property and set that to false. Now we have no control bar. And if you want to make it so the user can't resize the form, it's kind of static, you can go to the form border style property, and I want to set it to fixed single. Okay, so that just makes a very simple basic form here for us. And I'm going to go ahead and add a few items to this new form. I'm going to go ahead and add a label in a text box. Going to grab that label and just pop it right up here. And I'm going to change the text property on that to be username, put a colon on it, and then I will find my text box, drop that down here to put our username value in, and I'm going to set, kind of give it a flat style. I'm going to just, keep it even here. I just think that looks a little better. I'm going to shrink this up just a hair. All right, so now that you have that, all you got to do is copy these, and we want one for our password and one for our email address. So I'm going to select both of those. You can just click and drag out here over them, and Control-C, click down here on the form and click Control-V, or you can right-click, copy and paste, like any other forms in Windows. So I'm going to do that one more time because I want 3 copies of this. And I will take these values, I'm going to take the second label, I'm going to set that to password. And then I'll take the third value, and I will set that to email address. And now I want a checkbox up in the corner to pass a Boolean value to our database for the active column. If we look at the database that we were using in part 1, the sample database, if I double click on it, I can see my table structure, and in the members table, which is what we'll be working with here, I have the ID, the username, the password, email, website, and active. And if you click on these fields, you can see what their data types are. This is a Boolean data type, and these are character types. So it's kind of handy to be able to look at those when you need to. And we won't use this ID because that is the primary key for the database, and it's auto incrementing, so we don't want to actually ever insert anything into that. All right, so back to here, let's go back to our toolbox and grab a checkbox control. Where are you? Checkbox, checkbox. There you are. I'm going to put that right up in the corner, and I will change the text value on that to, whoops, active. A little question mark on there. Yes or no. All right, so now I'm going to change the names of the controls that will be working with the database here. So active, I'm going to change, because it's a checkbox, I just like to do this so it's easy to identify. Checkbox is active. We'll call this first one txt username, and because we're working in another form that's separate from the main form, it doesn't matter if we have overlapping names. You know, if you try putting two controls with the same name on the same form, it's going to complain at you. But even though we may have used like username over here, it shouldn't be a problem to use it on the other form. I should probably double check that in this version. Yeah. So it kept it. Yeah. It's not complaining. That's cool. All right. All right, so next one will be txt password. And finally, the txt email. Excuse me. And now let's grab a couple of buttons and put them on the bottom here. Gonna Control C and Control V on that. Sorry, I got a little tickle in my throat here. Try not to cough in your ear. And this button will be for saving. I'm just going to call it CMD save. I'm going to change the text on that to save. And I'll just call this one cancel. And I will name it CMD cancel. Just going to grab those both, bump them up just a hair. All right, so now we can begin coding our controls here. And I'm going to go ahead and press F7 here. What we're going to do is do this similarly to the main form. We need to create an instance of our database control class here to communicate with our database. We built this in part 1. You can reference it here if you want to look it over real quick. You get your database connection, your commands, your data table, and your adapter parameters, record count. This is where the execution occurs of your queries and commands, and just a simple sub for adding new parameters to your queries. All right, so we're going to come back here. I'm going to say private access as a new. Make sure you use that new keyword there to create a new instance of the DB control class. All right, so first thing's easy enough here. Let's just program this cancel button to, you know, if the user hits cancel, just have it close the form. We'll just say me.close. That's easy enough. So got a few things we want to do here. One thing we want to do is probably validate, you know, just what we're going to do, a very minor validation on our data. and just to make sure that the required fields have something's been entered into them, specifically the username and password. These ones are nullable, and they don't actually even have to contain a value, but these ones in the database do. So we're just going to do a very simple form validation here, and what I'll do is I'll use the key changed event. So every time a key is pressed, it'll check it. So if we double click in the first box there, it's going to create a text changed event for the text box. But I'm going to change this, and I'm going to call the name of it text box underscore validate, and I'm going to make it watch for the text change event on both the username box and the password box. So to do this, all you do is you add a comma and then add the second control you want to watch, password, and we want to watch the same event, text changed. Okay. So it should be happy with that. So we can use one event to monitor both of those events. So here we're going to say if not string dot is null or white space txt username dot text, and also, and using and also, what it'll do is if this one's not met, it won't even bother checking the second one. It'll just abort immediately. So it just saves a tiny bit of CPU usage there. We're going to repeat this as null or white space txt password dot text. Then so if both of these have something in them, or they're not full of nothing or white space, then we want to enable our save button. So we'll say cmd save dot enabled equals true. Okay. Sorry, that's a little bit sloppy, squeezing all that onto one line, but all right. So we should probably set this disable this save button so they can't save until something's entered into the required fields. To do that, all we got to do is select the button and find the enabled property, set it to false. All right. Now we're going to jump back into here, and let's create a sub to add a new user. Okay, so this is where the command execution is going to occur. We're going to say private sub add user. Don't need to supply any parameters. For the sub, I should clarify, because we are going to add command parameters right down here. So all right, so say access, use the add param method that we created in part 1, and I'm going to create an SQL variable called user txt username dot text is what we want to pass to that. And there's a couple of reasons that we use these parameters, and the first and probably most important being to prevent any SQL injection or SQL injection attacks against our database. Others reasons, it's a lot easier to pass different types of data through these. It's sort of a one-size-fits-all. You can pass pretty much any data type directly into your database. And the third reason is because you can create your query and command strings without breaking them, and adding a bunch of concatenators. So There's many reasons to use parameters, and I highly recommend it. Makes things a lot cleaner and easier in the end. Okay, so I'm going to add 3 more here, one for each field. So I'm going to do access.addParam, and this time I will do @pass. I'll do my txt password .text, and next add param at email. Oh, that's another reason. The special characters that you can pass through. Some characters in some database, different types of databases, I think like MySQL, certain characters are escape characters, and they'll actually break your query string if you try inserting them. So you can insert those through these because it's ignored until it actually hits the database. So it's nice for adding things like single quotes and other characters that might otherwise hang you up or break your strings. Just a little fact there that's kind of important. All right, and finally we want to do @active, and notice in this one we're actually going to be passing a Boolean value directly through here. My checkbox. Hello, checkbox, where are you? Whoops. Oh, I see what I did. You probably caught that. My brain was elsewhere. And we want to grab the checked value, which is a Boolean. All right, so we have a parameter for each field that we want to add into our database. And now we are going to execute our command. So we'll say execute insert command. So to do this, we'll say access.execute query, even though it's technically not a query. And this is where we'll put our insert command. So we'll say insert into, and I want to insert it into the members table. So I'm going to say insert into members, and then I have to specify which columns I will be inserting. And there is one catch. You have to be careful. Certain, it allowed us to create a password column in our Access database. However, I don't think this is specific to Microsoft Access so much as the JET driver or the ACE driver, but password is a reserved keyword, and because of this, it will throw an error back if we don't supply some form of some way to isolate that. And to do that, I'll show you what I mean here. If I just called it password like I normally would with any other field like username, this would give me a syntax error. It would cause that ACE driver to crash in the connection string. So what I do is Microsoft Access allows us to use brackets to sort of force those into text or into the string. So all you got to do to prevent that error, because we're using this, if it wasn't named password, if it was just PWD or something else, as long as it's not a reserved keyword in either Microsoft Access or the ACE or JET drivers that you're using, then you're fine. But if you are using something like password, you have to put it in those brackets like that. It's kind of weird. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take out these leading spaces here. I want my active field, and these must be named exactly, like they are in your table structure here. That's important. Okay, at the end, after the final parentheses, or paren, make sure you put a space right here. Otherwise, you'll get a run-on string, and that will cause you problems. So jump outside the string, add a concatenator, and we're going to drop down a line here just to keep this organized. And on the next line, you do not have to, but it does help organize it. So down here, we're going to add our values. I'm going to say first value is going to be our first parameter, then our second parameter, third, and then fourth. And like I said before, because we're using these parameters, we don't have to break our string, which is really nice. None of this nonsense. And txt password.text equals, you know, none of that. It keeps our string solid, and it's nice and clean. So add our user, add our password value, add our email variable here, and active. You can put a semicolon at the end of that if you want to terminate it properly. Okay, so once we have executed our command, what we want to do is report and abort if there are any errors. Okay, so in other words, don't crash. Just exit gracefully, but tell us why, you know, why it failed. So just a little something I like to do. Report and abort on errors. So I'm going to say if not string dot is null or empty, access dot exception. And this is where we're catching, just a little flashback to part 1 here again. This is where we're capturing any errors that may have occurred during our query or command execution right here. So if anything is found in there, then there was an error. Otherwise, it should just come back blank, and it should skip over this. So if an error was found, we'll say message box access dot exception. And then I'm just going to do a little line add-on here. I'm going to say exit sub, so I can keep that on one line. It's easy to read. So not alternatively, but optionally, if you want to report a success message, kind of like I displayed earlier, sometimes you don't want to do that. It just kind of interrupts the flow of the application. If there's no errors, great, just keep going. You know, if you do like to see a success message, you could just, you know, throw that in right here. You can just do a message box, you know, user was added successfully. Generally, I don't like to do that. It was just a, you know, whoops, message obs. And finally, because we set that the access on this refresh grid sub back here to public, we can now access it from form 2. So these forms can interact with each other. So we can say form1 dot refresh grid to update the results. Once we've added the user, we want to be able to see them, right? So should automatically populate, and then all is good. We're going to go ahead and close the form. So let's see, are we missing anything here? I think we what we need to do now is make sure that we add this add user functionality to our save button. So in the event that everything's good, let's go ahead and save. So we'll just say add user. That's easy enough. Okay, now there's one last thing we need to do, and that is to jump back to form 1 and give this form link on our menu items. Just double click on that and it'll generate an event for the item click. And we'll say we want a new user, and we want to call the show method for that form to make it pop up. So once you've done that, we can go ahead and click go, and we should be able to see our initial data set here. And let's go ahead and click the new user button. Good. Form pops up. That was that new user.show that just occurred. And username is, you know, whatever you want. Password. Okay, here's one thing we can change. I forgot to set the password character on this field. I was going to do hello. But I'm going to go ahead and try canceling because I don't want to do it. Let's jump back to our form. You may have already done this. Just click on the password field and find use system password character and change that to true, and that'll obfuscate it. Now keep in mind, people, in the real world, you know, if you want to keep your database secure, never store your passwords, especially in plain text, in your database. That's so insecure. Someone gets a hold of your database, boom, they got everybody's passwords and sensitive information. At the very least, you should encrypt those, and you know, in real world scenarios, you should use like a password hash or something like that. I'm only doing that just for the sake of simplicity in this very basic tutorial, so keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and try adding another user again. Let's again add old Tom here. Password will be this is awesome. Email address old Tom at yahoo.net. Isn't it? No, it's yahoo.com. Duh. Okay, and I'm going to make sure his account is active, and I'm going to save user was added successfully. That means all of our fields passed in, and you'll notice that the active column successfully gathered its Boolean value from our checkbox. And you can see the password here. So I think that our work here is done. Now, deleting and updating records is even more simple than this. You know, what we'd do is just add a couple more menu items up here. You could have a form for editing users, or you know, changing their profile data or whatever. Really, there's any number of things that you can do with this. It's pretty awesome. So if you want, I can keep doing these. Give me a, you know, send me a message. Let me know what you think, what you did like and what you didn't like. Give me the old thumbs up or thumbs down, whichever you prefer. I appreciate your support of the channel, and I wish you all well on your projects. Thanks for coming along. Bye-bye.